stuff all set up. Let's see, stream manager. That's running a panel. Boopity boop boop. Oh, I don't actually have it. Hold up. I would like to do a presentation. Slideshow on. Yeah. Presenter view. Then I can move this like down here. And then pretend like get us back. Oh, there's a timer on here. That's actually really nice. Timer's great. Hello, Vial Council. Can I please have this be full screen? I guess not. There we go. I'm learning. Yeah, so we're running a panel at a local comic convention. It's a one-day like event on Saturday. And I last minute put the panel together, even though I've known we were going to go to this for months. The last minute thing is always what happens. So we want to do some like run throughs, check our timing, remove slides if we decide that they don't fit. So I've got the ad that's about to start. I'm gonna go ahead and have that run just to get it out of the way so we don't get interrupted with pre-roll because ew. Let some people trickle in while I go at everybody and be like, get in here, we're presenting. So that's about to start. And then
I'm gonna go get my blanket because I'm cold.
You're cold. I'm like medium heat. All right. Hit that at 80. Or not. My commands aren't working. Gasp. Why not? It logged me out. That's why. Why would you do this, Streamlabs? What's wrong with you? Cloudbot. Okay, doing this again. No. What? Jeez, is it like, oh, I didn't use
It
this
says
for
it's
3
running.
days. What says it's running?
The ad break. It says ad break in progress. Ad break ends in 2 minutes, 41 seconds.
Yeah, but that I want the command to say, hey guys, ad break is coming up.
Oh.
Because like, is my death set command? Yeah, that's not working either. Commands, why? Do I have to disconnect them from Twitch and reconnect them? That doesn't make any sense. Why are my extensions not working? Let's see. Subscription, sponsorship, moderation, emotes, rewards, streaming together. Charity. Oh, man. Streamlabs commands not working.
A wild kitty appears.
Hello, Nathaniel. Says it's active on Twitch. Let's see. Should I disconnect it and reconnect it? Sorry, this is what we're doing. We're troubleshooting at the beginning. My extensions. No, that's not what I want. Huh. Very odd. Moderation. Okay, roles. Right? Where's that all at? Hi. Sorry. Roles manager. Yep, Streamlabs is a moderator. Huh. Okay. I'll figure it out later. Hello, Nennefer. I guess it would probably help if I was sharing my screen. Sorry, I'm been awake a long time. Game capture. Can you just capture my Opera tab?
Saint Coelacanth says, I'm a coupon for 15% off a stapler.
Okay.
Oh, am I too loud? I can not be loud.
Oh, Lynn is louder than me. Okay. I'll adjust it on my end, Lynn. Give me just a second. Thanks
Okay.
for the heads up. Select the display to capture. capture that display, and then not be 100 million giant, huge. No necesito. Sources. All the way down. All the way down. Boop. Okay. Now it's beneath things. Okay. Oh, you don't know who's too loud or who's quiet. Okay, well, I wasn't facing my mic, so now I'm facing my mic and speaking. So does that help?
Does it help when I talk? This is where my face will be, as close to the mic as it's gonna get. The mice.
Get close to the mice. Yeah, I was definitely talking away from my mic because I was very focused on the screen. Okay, so it's all good. It was just mic placement. Gotcha. Okay. Saint McFish. Well, hey guys, welcome in. Let's see. That stream notification went up. So we are excelente. Yeah, so basically what we're doing today is not a typical normal stream. In case you couldn't tell by the fact that I've got a PowerPoint pulled up. So we're literally just going to we're running a panel on Saturday. And we're going to run this panel a couple of times this year. Hopefully like up to 4 or more times this year. So I've thrown it together. And we will see how it goes. I think there's probably a couple of things that need to be adjusted, but you guys' feedback is going to be super valuable. Some of you guys don't know a whole lot of things about comics. Some of you do. And so this is our opportunity to be like, hi, we're talking about comics here. Also, I realized that the first image in the GIF is the wrong image. I'll fix it later. I couldn't be bothered. That was the page I was gonna do, and then I was like, so I switched it up. It's fine. Okay. I'm gonna reset this timer, which is really nice, because now we can see. And we're just gonna kind of like cold run and pretend like we know what we're doing. Or just for a heads up for y'all, we're expecting to talk for about 45 minutes. Our panel is an hour long and we want to give about 15 minutes for questions. That's probably only going to give us like up to 5 questions from like the audience that we have. So yeah, we're just rolling with it. All right, we're going to pretend like I didn't just explain what the panel is. So hi everybody. Welcome to this panel, which is Comics 101, the basics of making a comic. Comics are complicated and also quite fun. So we're here to talk about that. But in order to talk about that, it probably would help if you guys knew who we were. So who the heck are we? Well, I'm Court, and then I motion to Lynn.
And I'm Lynn.
And together we make up Border Breakers, which is at this point a little bit more multimedia than just comics, but that's fine. Some of the stuff that we have worked on is a variety of things. We have a personal project called Dragon Spirit, which is our big like epic fantasy comic. And also a video game project that we're super proud of that we made for Spooktober visual novel Game Jam last year, which was ranked #1 in story. And what were the rankings on that, Lynn?
#1 in story, #2 in music.
Cool. And also the soundtrack is on Spotify and it's like super good, so go listen to it. That was just a team of people that we either knew or didn't know, and we pulled together to work on a jam. We had less than 10 people working on this. We had a month. We wrote 33,000 words. Pretty happy with how it turned out. It's free to play on itch.io. Other things that we've worked on. I was a graphic assistant on a actually published comic that was made with Dean Motter, who's a very famous illustrator guy who's like been really popular forever. He's responsible for creating Mr. X. And Lynn's worked on most of these other things, if you want to talk about those, Lynn.
Yeah, so I mostly was a background artist for a lot of other visual novels that were done for various game jams. I also did a little bit of menu work. And I think that's mostly it. I did a little bit of sprite work for the more recent ones as well.
Yeah. Collectively, we have design and animation degrees and lots of experience in design, and also lots of experience in what not to do with making comics and what to do. So we're here to talk about that today. So who is this panel for? This panel is for newbies and hobbyists, and people who are just generally curious. This panel is not for professionals, because I would expect a professional comic artist to already know how to make a comic. And it's not here to talk about how to get your comic published. And like, we'll talk about some resources for like free publishing type things like online, but this is not for like, how do I get into Marvel and DC? We're not talking about that. Glenn, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think we're all good.
Okay. I want to make a comic. What if I'm not good at drawing? Never fear. We're going to talk about that because basically comics are an amalgam of many, many skills. Drawing is one of those many skills. So the big important thing is if you have a story to tell, don't let the lack of developed skills, okay, underline, we'll elaborate on that, stop you from starting, because everybody starts somewhere. And I say develop skills because you will develop the skills the longer you do this. Everybody starts somewhere, us included. This thing on the left is the very first comic page that I ever did. It was like 2006. It was the day before 7th grade started. These two same characters are on the right side of the page. It's very different. And the craziest thing about these two things is these were only 3 years apart. Which, when I did that math, I was also like, what? We've come so far since then. I think I'm going to dump the slide. But in case I don't, what are we talking about today? Well, we're not talking about types of comics. We'll talk about the scope. We'll talk about writing and some things that you need to know regarding drawing, including useful skills that you should develop as part of you wanting to make a comic. We will just briefly touch on character design, but there's a higher focus on page design and a little bit of focus on lettering because it is an unsung art. And then we'll just generally talk about what it's like to kind of work as a team and then provide some fancy dancy resources for everybody. Speaking of the process, I'm going to hand this one off to Lynn. I'm once again asking for an explanation of the process of making comics.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so one of the things that you want to do pretty early on is define the scope of your project. And what that kind of means is, are you looking at making a daily strip like we would expect to see in the olden days of newsprint, but can also be on the web? Are you looking at something that is going to be more episodal? Are you looking for something that is going to be a grand fantasy epic that needs to take 20 volumes? It's really important to kind of figure out what is the best presentation of your story. And ideally, you're going to try and make it a scope that is obtainable based on what skills you can start with, because again, we're going to develop those skills over time. But also, how much time do you have? Comics is a very labor intensive, very time intensive hobby to get into. There's a lot that you need to learn. And depending on your situation, you might not be able to do the grand epic fantasy right now. And maybe you need to start with something that's a little bit more smaller, a little bit more self-contained, so you can experiment and learn a bit more. The next thing that you might want to consider is who is your audience for, because how you kind of decide what your art style is going to look like, what kind of medium you're going to use, or just how you're going to kind of present or write for your comic is deciding on who's the audience. If you're going to be making a comic that you want really young, small children to work with, you don't want to be using very verbose language and having, like intricate political plots that a child is not going to be able to follow. So at least having an idea of who your audience is helpful, and it is totally okay for you to be like, well, the audience is going to be like, you can make comics that are just comics that you like, that are for you, because someone else is probably going to have similar tastes to you eventually. You're never going to have a comic that is going to, or any creative project that is going to appeal to everyone, and you shouldn't appeal to everyone. You want to find your core die-hard audience, and that can take some experimenting and some time. You also, your scope will also depend on, are you working alone or do you have a team? And is that team paid or not? Obviously, if we are just starting out with comics, the answer is probably no. In which case, you need to, you might have to compromise on some things. You might have people who are amateur level like yourselves, or you might have people that don't have as much time to commit to the project either. So knowing who's on your team and do you guys have an aligned vision for your project is really important. The next thing that you need to do is write it. You need to script things out and plan ahead because the more prepared you are before you go into the drawing stage, ideally, the less you're going to have to redraw things, which takes a lot of time. Still might end up redrawing things. We're probably going to talk about that later. But you really, really want to set yourself up to meet your scope, meet any deadlines you set for yourself, because it will keep you motivated. There's nothing worse than having unfinished things, because that's going to make it so much harder to actually get your project out there. So the more you can get in the habit of finishing things, even if they're not perfect, that is going to really help. And doing some prep and planning ahead of time can help with that, or at least take the pressure off.
Yeah, I'm gonna add to that. My very first attempt at making this comic stopped in the middle of a page because I forgot what the dialogue was going to be because I was drawing it in class when I was in like middle school. Uh so the lack of planning ahead meant I had no idea where we was going, and I didn't really have a plan anyway. Um, which caused me to then restart because I wanted to, and I'd gotten better at drawing. We've redrawn a lot of pages. I've got a stack. So now we're talking about the next bit here, which is the writing process. Everybody's seen the 3-act structure. And if you haven't seen the 3-act structure, this is your introduction to the 3-act structure. Okay? This is tried and true. It works. And the great thing about this is that it can apply to both your whole story. It can apply to different individual arcs within the story, and you can use it for your individual like issues or episodes or however you choose to break your comic up. Like the 3-act structure happens even, I think, mental note, let's get a 3-act structure panel here. Like a little four panel thing to show the 3-act structure. Anyway, rising action, like your introduction, your rising action, your climax, your falling action, slash your resolution. That should happen within every issue and even within every page. Which we'll talk about a little bit more as we get into things, but the 3-act structure, study it, look at it, look at things that look at movies that you've watched and like try to identify where they go. This was a thing I hated to do in middle school. We learned about this. I didn't get it. You know, the little diagram where you like draw a hill up and then a hill down. I had no idea how to do those things. I didn't have the reading comprehension skills for that. Learning to identify it in a different way is super helpful. So you got to introduce your characters. You got to build the characters up all the way on their way to Mordor. And then you got to deal with all the stuff in Mordor. And then the story's over. The ring's destroyed, or woo. Anyway, start with the outline. The outline generally follows this 3-act structure. These are your big bullet points. What are the big events in your story? Introduction of character. What are the things that they're going to run into? What are other characters that we're going to meet? Introduce your villain early. And then how does it all culminate in the end? What's the big event that's happening? Lynn, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think we're good.
Okay, cool. So there are different writing/scripting methods, and it entirely depends on you or the person you're working with. If you are just a writer and you're working with an artist, you're going to have a different dynamic than if you are the writer and the artist. So we just want to talk about some of the different options for kind of how comics are generally scripted out. The first one is the most common one in the professional comic world, like the Marvel, DC, mostly like the DC world, but a lot of basically every comic that has a writer and an artist is the writer essentially defines everything that's going on in each individual panel on the page, and then the artist's job is to interpret that and leave space for any dialogue. So I've got 2 examples from the same script here. The one on the left is mostly just narration. These are important things that need to happen. This is the writer's vision for what it needs to happen. It's specifically talking about a wider shot of the morgue. Here's our character. This is a loose description. This is what he's doing right now. And then here's the next panel where he's frowning down at it. And it's up to the artist to completely decide what that looks like visually. And then this other example has different dialogue. So this is just a general kind of how the scripts look, but how it looks is ultimately up to you. My scripts don't look like this. But part of why my scripts don't look like this is because this is the method that I use. I wouldn't have known to call it that for the longest time, but the Marvel method is another very common, popular method, which was Stan Lee, Jack Kirby method, the ye olden days of Marvel, where writer says this general thing is happening in this issue. Here's what needs to happen in this issue. And then here's generally what happens, maybe page by page. And then the artist would go in and basically draw the events of the issue, just however they imagine that it would go. And then the writer would come back in and write the specific dialogue based on the images that had been drawn. So as you can see here in the script, each panel, the script only calls for 5 panels, but there are 6 panels on this page because the artist decided that maybe they could tell that story or tell that information visually in a different way that helps tell that story better. And so this is the same kind of method that I used, or at least that I have found works really well for me, is breaking it down into what needs to happen in this issue and then just kind of drawing or storyboarding it out and thinking of the dialogue as I go, assembling it all together and then making sure that it all reads fairly well before moving on to the later processes. So I like that. Whoops. Sorry, Mike. I like this method. And then there's this weird method that this guy named Tony Cliff, who writes the Delilah Dirk series, which is one of my favorite comic series ever. It's a graphic novel series. He writes it all in prose as if he's writing a book. He writes a straight up manuscript. And then he breaks it down into pages. And then he draws the pages. This is not a common method. Most people don't do this. But whatever floats your boat. He's writing and drawing, so he can do it however he wants. I thought this was an interesting method. I wanted to share it. Lynn, do you have anything you'd like to add on writing/scripting?
Yeah, I would definitely even if you are in a situation where you are only writing and are not the artist, if you have the ability to constantly having a line of communication with your artist, I think is really important because regardless of what method you end up using, there I have seen some instances of comic pages where it is clear that there was a miscommunication between what the writer intended and what the artist ended up drawing. And then when the writer came back to put the dialogue back in, all of a sudden the art didn't make sense for that, and it still ended up getting published. So in the indie comic space, hopefully you have a little bit more ability to have a back and forth dialogue with your artist if you are not the artist, as well as being the writer. Just to make sure that, like you're not going to run into those situations where the art does not match what was actually written. Because chances are you're probably not going to have the luxury of having an editor who can check for those things. So you, as the writer artist pair, kind of also need to take some of the role of being an editor and double checking things. Just because like you're not in necessarily in a situation where you have an editor. If you do have an editor, fantastic. But also your editor is not your writer, not your artist. So they are also viewing your work, not having a lot of the background knowledge of either the artist or the writer either. So it can get a little complicated, but if you have open dialogue between all your team members and you are checking in frequently so that no one's ever like blindsided by something, it can make the process go a lot smoother.
Most important rule of anything ever is that a good story can save bad art, but good art cannot save a bad story. This is why manga and anime that like look really good fail. It's because the story is just not very good. That's why comics that maybe look really good fail, is because the story might not be very good, or maybe like the audience didn't connect with it. You gotta have a good story first and foremost. You gotta have characters people can connect with. And a really, really, really good example of this, maybe the most famous example of this, is One Punch Man. The first season of the anime was phenomenal, turned it into this global sensation, wonderfully animated. Madhouse did a great job. But do you know what the original comic looked like? It looked like this. This is a dude with like probably a 6-inch Wacom tablet, doodling away in Clip Studio Paint or Photoshop, not having a clue about what he was doing. But he made compelling characters and a great story that, although he wasn't capable of translating very well into the visual medium, still got enough picked up that they had like a professional artist, like a professional manga artist, come back in and redraw it. And like, that's the One Punch Man that we know today. So good story saves bad art. Like, dude's doing his best. You can tell what's going on, but it's pretty bad. So comics are a process. You are not going to get to finished, this level of finished, in a day, in a year. I said I've been drawing comics since I was like 12. I'm 31. It takes time. You got life, you got school, you got everything else going on around it. It's okay. You're going to get there. All right. So talking about comics. And the most important rule of all is, say it with me, Lynn, show, don't tell.
Don't tell.
Yeah. I really like this panel from Jujutsu Kaisen where he's like, don't info dump me with that garbage. There is too many stories where they just info dump. I do not need you to narrate what is happening in the fight. I can see it, or it should be drawn in a way that I can tell what's going on. Show, don't tell. Visual medium. Really, really great example is the Little Trash Maid webcomic. First of all, if you haven't seen this, you should go read it. And by read it, I mean look at it, because there's very little text. There's no dialogue. Everything is conveyed purely through imagery. And that is what makes visual stuff good, is you should be able to tell what's going on with no dialogue. It's the same thing with animation. You should be able to make an animation. You should tell a story with no dialogue. That's why the Pixar shorts were really, really great when they first started coming out. And they're still really good. But like that just shows what you can do. You can tell an emotional story with 0 words. And that is what you are aiming to do with a comic. So, just like animation, just like film, comics are a visual medium. So, there are some things that you can learn from those other mediums that will help you translate into comics, because again, there's so much, like everything is crisscrossing together. There's so much stuff that overlaps. For example, I'm gonna just skip the cinematography stuff. I have an animation degree. I got better at comics because of my animation degree. I got better at like making dynamic poses, at drawing characters in a way that like still fits them, but is a little. Sometimes you just gotta break it. And then the cinematography stuff. Hi, every single shot in your comic is just like another camera angle in a movie. You don't need to have as many camera angles. There's a lot of times you can just get away with less things happening, but there's some stuff that we're going to chat about that's in this list. Like shot types. Study your shot types. This is just a general like collection of what different cinematic shot types look like. Learn things like this. Learn how they change the mood and the setting. And other things. This is I think my number 1 rule. Okay. I'll go on a whole tangent about this. The 180-degree rule. Okay? You draw an imaginary line between the 2 people that are talking. If there's 3 people that are talking, there's another imaginary line. And you never cross that line. How many times have you read a comic or watched a show? Probably less a show, but like have you read a comic, maybe an amateur comic, where the characters were facing the same way even though they were talking to each other? Like that can be very confusing for the audience. What are you looking at? Who are you talking to? Like 180-degree rule. If character A is on the left in the first panel, character A is always on the left. If character B is on the right, they are always on the right. There are very few instances where you can break this rule, but you have to know the rule before you can break it. Because like I have absolutely broken the rule, but I have broken the rule in a way that you still know who is where and what's going on. The point of this rule is to keep your viewers from being confused. Shot composition. Go for it, Lynn.
Just kind of to add on to the 180-degree rule. Something else that's really important to make sure that people are not confused in your scene is if you are changing locations, include an establishing shot. Because that's going to set where your characters are in that space. And then people know, oh, Tony's on the left and Joe is on the right, and they are in front of a bakery shop. If your shots are all really tight in and we can never see where these people are existing, it just doesn't make us feel like we're there participating in the conversation or that these people are existing in a space.
We'll talk about that more with page design.
Yeah.
Shot composition, again, take from film. Look at film and photography and illustration and everything else. Composition is made up of contrast and shapes and symmetry and color, and like you can use all of these different things to help guide your individual like shots and panels. Just it helps you make things more interesting. So I'll get more into that a little bit later. Something that we can learn from animation is pushing the poses. Like stretching the characters out, making sure that everything has a clear silhouette. That's always been a really big thing in animation, is like everybody should be able to tell what's going on through most of the frames of that animation. And so that's why I think like this example over here was really good, is like you can see that he's like stretched this leg out quite a bit to help push that pose. And like sometimes we're moving people into unnatural positions, but if it's in the middle of like action, then it helps, like you can sell it better because of that. So clear silhouettes, pushing those poses, just choosing interesting angles that help tell your story. From animation, go off model if it's funny. This dude right here doesn't stay on model ever. He's off model in every single panel, but it's for comedy, so I don't care. But you like look at it. Hands don't do that. They don't swirl like that. They don't become mittens. Noses aren't that, like your facial proportions aren't like that. You can push things into the further realm of disbelief to help sell the moment. That's the advantage of drawing things. So we're going to keep those things in mind as we transition from our written script and whatever format that might be into pages and what the pages look like. We are not going to cover everything that has to do with page design. We're going to cover some basics because we could talk for a whole hour just about page design. So the general process is that you have a thumbnail, and your thumbnails are small. Like that thumbnail, I blew it up. The thumbnails are like small. They're like a couple of inches because that keeps you from getting too detailed. And then you redraw it into your template of whatever size you're using. It depends on like what kind of comic that you're looking for. Is it for web? Is it for print? And then you ink over it. If you're the sole artist, you're inking it. It can be as rough as you want it to be because you know what those lines are going to look like. If you're not the sole artist, motions to Lynn over in the imaginary right of me. As you can see, she crisps it up quite a lot when she's inking it, and I appreciate that. She does such a good job because I can't draw trees. These are my trees. That looks like a lightning bolt. It's not even really a tree. And then Lynn drew like trees that look like trees. And then like the finished page is all the things coming together. It's all the color and the color effects and then the lettering and blah, blah, blah. So these are your general steps. It is easiest to find and fix mistakes in the thumbnail stage. That's where you plot out where your word balloons are probably going to go. I keep slapping my mic. I will sometimes take all my thumbnails into Illustrator and like letter the thumbnails just to make sure I don't need to move anything around before I like put the effort into like the rough soft pencil stage. Cause then like the worst thing ever is discovering you don't have any space and your art's done, and fixing it is like, well, now I'm going to lose art. Don't do it. So me in particular, I have a goofy process. I don't thumbnail page as page, which is probably the better thing to do. And I learned from doing it this way that it's not always the best, but I storyboard it in a way that's kind of in my head, and I try out different shots, and then I assemble them into a page into a way that like makes sense and like takes up enough space, like figuring out exactly how much space I need. So I draw this all separately in a completely different Photoshop document, and it's doodles everywhere. And I go over to my thumbnail document and I'm like, resize, adjust, move things around. And that works for me. So whatever method works for you, use it. All right, page design. Biggest, number one-ist rule is your eye lines. Typically, people are going to read, typically people in the Western side of the world where we read left to right are going to read things in a Z shape. They're going to go top left corner over to the right and then diagonally down and then back, and however many levels that you have. And when you've got just a simple grid pattern for your panels, that's fine. because that's just naturally how we read. However, there are times where maybe your panels are a little confusing and how they're laid out, which we'll get into. I think we'll get into. Um, so our general reading is okay if the grid is the same. We're reading across and down, across and down, across and down. But what can we do as the artist to help guide that eye? And so I think that this middle example is a really good example for how, like, the shapes within the panels and sometimes the color and the way that the color, it's grayscale, and the way like the contrast is working help in the movement too, help kind of move you into the next panel. It's really subtle. It's not something that you really know to look for unless you are actively looking for it. And please forgive the crunchy JPEG. I could not find this page in full resolution anywhere, but I really like this page because this page from Thor uses every aspect of it to help lead that eye. Like, from the way that Thor is like angled down, and then the way that like the light kind of brings you up here and then pulls you back down through the page. Like, yeah, you've got your speech bubbles, and they can do a fair bit of eye leading as well. But if you keep those colors and the action and the shapes kind of directing where people go, in addition to just our natural want to read from left to right, it can just really help sell. Because your goal is from this corner to this corner and the most efficient way possible. And I think that this is another just good example of how that is like, okay, here's just like the general way that we would read this page in blue, but here's how the action helps sell it and helps like guide the eye through each of the panels. Well, do you have anything on this aspect of page design?
Yeah, I think that something that you can, in your thumbnailing stage, don't forget to kind of put place markers for where you think your dialogue is going to go. Because obviously you don't want your speech bubbles to cover up your lovely art that you're going to put all this effort into. But like Court mentioned, your dialogue bubbles can do a lot of heavy lifting in helping to guide your reader through their page. If you ever get to a situation where you're like, ooh, people are, like, I need to number my speech bubbles so people read them in the right order. You need to revisit how you're handling your speech bubbles. You need to rethink how you've laid things out. You should, ideally, if you can turn off your artwork entirely in whatever software you're using to draw in, or traditionally, like, cover it up and just look at where your speech bubbles are placed. And if you can still read them in the correct order without any art at all, then your speech bubbles are doing their job. Like, they are helping to guide everything regardless of what the art is doing. But hopefully both your art and the speech bubbles are working together to create those eye lines, so that your reader does not get confused at any point.
Yes. And so our next slide is kind of in regards to dialogue and how to avoid the talking head syndrome, which I don't have an example because I try to avoid it. But we brought it up earlier. This is, you're reading a webtoon and every shot is the same. It's all a bust up shot. It's just their face. There's like nothing else going on. There's no background. You can't tell where they are. And it's just the same exact shot. Same head, same head, same head, same head. Like that, you can use that for some like comedic purposes. I'm a big fan of repetition for comedy. But in your general conversations, it is so tiring to read that. So I grabbed this rough page because I think that this has a really good example of how we can avoid talking heads. So one of the rules that one of the professors in college taught me is that no two heads on the page should be the same size. And that rule has stuck with me almost more than any other thing that he taught me about comics. That rule stuck with me. So here's kind of how that plays in. So on the left is just the page as it is. But on the right, I have circled all the heads and generally how big they are. And so you can tell that some of them are pretty similar in size. But on the right, I've pulled them all out and every single head is pretty much a different size. And so that helps keep what this could have been, which was just character A talking, character B talking, character A talking, character B talking. It forces you to choose more interesting angles. And I really like that about the talking heads rule, is that it makes you think about over the shoulder angles, or it makes you think about top down angles, or worm's eye view angles. Like, this gets you thinking is, okay, my first draft of this page, all the heads are the same size. Let me mix that up a little bit. What other camera shots can I try that are going to get the same thing across? So this rule, I live by this rule. It's a great rule, and it really is just a simple rule that helps. Next thing I kind of wanted to talk about was like pages versus a webtoon format. And of course, the best thing I could do was just record a video of the endless scroll of webtoon. On the left is the page version of this. On the right is something that we tried to experiment with. We wanted to see, like, okay, if we were just to straight up make this for webtoon, because at the time webtoon seemed like it was the like end all be all platform. We wanted to try to like appeal to that. But what we found in this is that it was extremely, like, art quality aside, because the two pages are completely different, but it was extremely limiting in how we could get shots. You can't do a wide angle shot very effectively. You don't get these long pauses in time that are like wide and kind of hanging. The speech bubbles are often not even in the same space as the characters, which to me feels very like separation. So we got some really good feedback from a friend who said that, like, you know, hey, should we redraw this into the page format, or should we keep the old page? And they said the old page, while it doesn't have as much stuff, is more, it feels more like a conversation or an argument that's happening, because you can see them kind of going back and forth in what they're, what they're doing. So I really liked that feedback. Lynn, do you have anything you want to add about this?
I don't think so. And obviously, like, if you are doing a strip, like, whether or not it's horizontal or vertical, like, if all your panels are the same size, like, you're probably not going to have as much impact. But the size, the shape, and the orientation of your panels does have an impact on the reader's perception of time passing. So that is something very much to keep in mind, especially if you're going to be doing something that is comedic. Comedic timing is really important. The other thing is there's a lot of timing advantages as far as suspense is concerned when you are using pages. Having a page turn instead of you continually scrolling is a very powerful tool to use with big reveals. It feels like such a bigger moment because you're not just you're not in that kind of cycle of scroll. I know that a lot of, I don't know if there's been a study on this yet, but I have heard people say that, like, they are way more likely to fly through something that is a vertical scroll format because we're so used to that scrolling motion that we won't even read. Yeah, we won't read or look at what we're actually seeing, versus turning a page, we're going to spend a little bit more time, which is, can be so important for your readers. The other thing is, if someone misses something, it's a lot easier for them to turn back a page and reread it instead of having to either reload what they scrolled or scroll all the way back up. It's a different experience.
Yeah. And like, whether or not you go for page or webtoon or individual panels, like, that's going to be according to your scope. Like, the way that you do it is according to scope. Also on the page turning experience, just in general, that's your goal. Like if you're making comic book pages, that's your goal, is keep the reader wanting to turn the page. So a really good piece of feedback or like piece of advice that I got was like end every page on a minor cliffhanger. Like, and it doesn't need to be like an actual like huge cliffhanger, but end it in a way that like makes somebody want to turn the page, because that alone can, again, that very powerful experience. Like if your minor thing and you turn the page and there's this big 2-page spread that you weren't expecting, it's like, oh, that's so cool. Like you get a genuine reaction out of people. It's really nice. Next we're going to just briefly talk about lettering. Again, it's an unsung art. There is so much that I could talk about with lettering. I'm not going to, because the folks at Blambot, this stuff comes from them. Like Nate Piekos, I think, I don't know how to say his name, Picos, who is like the guy at Blambot. He made these little like amateur lettering mistakes. These are really, really amazing guides. And Blambot's got a bunch of free resources, free fonts. They sell a book. They've got tutorials. Learn to letter right, because nothing drives me more insane than seeing default bubbles from Clip Studio that don't even look very good, or like Photoshop oval tool with a tail on it. Fun fact, your bubbles, speech bubbles, they're never perfect ovals. There's not a single professional speech bubble that is a perfect oval. They're just slightly squared off in a way that is super hard to describe without you just like going and looking. So if you can't letter very well and you want to make a professional level something, learn to letter. This is typically like Clip Studio Paint has a great tool. I would just advise making some changes to its tool, which are super easy to do, and you can set it as your default. Look for tutorials on that. And then also Adobe Illustrator. I use Illustrator just because I'm familiar with it, and the Pathfinder tool is like my bestie. Other really good resource for lettering information is Bad Ink Studios on YouTube and everything else. They make a lot of really good shorts on lettering. It's great. The other thing about lettering is be consistent. Okay, other art skills that are useful to develop. We're gonna zoom through this stuff because we are approaching time. Yes, if you're gonna draw a comic, you should probably know how to draw at least somewhat. But what else could you focus on? So we talked about like cinematography and stuff. Anatomy, specifically proportions. This chart is like all the different proportions that exist in a person. Okay, and people are very strange, but you gotta know how. You can't just like go straight into like I'm drawing anime girls, because you're not gonna understand why the proportion breaking works there. So this is another like learn the rule to break the rule. You don't have to learn this to just start drawing your comic. Again, like just draw it. Just do the thing that brings you joy. But if you want to actively get better at it, you can best improve that by using photo references. You can absolutely use photo references. It's not cheating to use a reference. And by doing gesture drawing practice. There's websites online that will like cycle through gesture drawing for you. That is the number one thing that helped me get better. Lynn, anything on this?
Something that you might see, especially in the webcomic space, is the use of 3D models. And this isn't just for backgrounds, it's mostly for backgrounds. But I have seen it for clothing. I have seen it for objects that characters are interacting with. I have seen it with like characters' feet or hands. Those are things that you can use. They are at your disposal, but understand that they are shortcuts. They're fine if you're in a pinch and you have absolutely no choice to use them, but you are never going to get better if you rely on them too heavily. You, at some point, if you want to get better, you do have to kind of get on the grind and do some of the boring anatomy studies and make yourself do it. because that's where you're gonna actually see improvement. You're not gonna see improvement if you are using these tools of convenience to not put in the time and the effort. Um, like again, like it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time to make a comic, and if you're just like, I just want to get my story out there, you can do it, but understand that like the next project you work on, you're not going to have moved the peanut forward on developing your skills and getting better. You're going to have limited that growth because you didn't put in the time in earlier.
Everybody who hates drawing hands and who hides the hands in the pockets, you should come see me. Insert table number here. And I will teach you the bean car method that has infuriated more than one of my friends. All right, other things you should learn. Perspective. Everybody's drawing perspective grids with buildings. Yeah, hi, that's actually very helpful. There's a lot to learn about perspective, but ultimately every single thing that you will ever draw can be broken down into a simple shape, be it a square or a cylinder or a cone. Learning how to draw those things in perspective will ultimately make things just really a lot easier for you to do. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at perspective. Sometimes my perspective is stupid. But having an idea of like what it looks like and getting that practice in will make your life so much easier. Like, just learn the perspective, dude. And it's also going to give you more interesting shots. Like, you're going to be able to draw things from more interesting angles. Design principles. You can go into this. There's so many things to go into about design principles. There's 17 of them. Having some idea of these things, hierarchy, alignment, contrast is a big one because that has to do with like color or value or size and shape. Learning some of the design principles will help you make better art composition shots and will help you make better comic books. And it's just like, it's good stuff to know. You don't have to know it all off the top of your head. I forgot most of these, but having some like inkling of an idea of what these things are really, really helpful for when you're making your pages. Very quick aside regarding character design. If you're drawing a comic, you do not want a character with 600 Final Fantasy belts. You're going to be drawing this character hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Trust me when I say you want to keep it as simple as possible. So don't draw complex character designs. You're gonna have a bad time. Just simple, recognizable characters. Same rule for animation. You know, a good character design is one that can be identified by its silhouette alone. If all your characters look the same in your comic, and I can't tell them apart, despite this being like muddy colors, we're gonna have a problem. But we're gonna have a problem. It's me. I'm gonna have a problem, and people with accessibility issues, like, fine, give us some good silhouettes. Like, make your characters more interesting. And you don't have to do like cartoony proportions like this. Just keep them different enough from themselves that you can tell them apart.
Your super complicated character costumes are great for pinups and merch and covers, where you only have to draw them once.
Yep. Absolutely. It's like, save that stuff for your, like, I'm only drawing this once or twice.
Our comic has a lot of armor in it. I tell ya, we sure are simplifying some of that armor.
And even then, it's still complicated. Okay, we're just gonna jump right into programs that people can use because everybody's gonna ask. I personally continue to stick with Photoshop and Illustrator. Those are not cost effective for people. I have access to them, therefore I use them. Clip Studio Paint. Everybody and their mother swears on this program. I also quite like it. Hello, Mr. Shins. And Blender. Not a drawing tool, necessarily. It's a 3D, you can use it as 3D modeling. And it's free. And there's a million tutorials. And I have absolutely built environments that I'm going to draw 100 million times in Blender. We have a lot of resources over at our Linktree. And I'm going to have a slide with a bunch of other resources that are like programs that you can get for free or low cost or that are alternatives to a big, expensive creative suite. Um, there's a shop link in our link tree, and I have to disclose that that's like Amazon affiliate shop link, but it's stuff that it's books that like we've used and it's products that we like recommend. So if you're like, what kind of tablet should I use? Or what kind of software should I use? What books should I look at? That's your go-to place. It's also got some like webcomic and like regular comic recommendations of things that we love. Because everybody's gonna ask, what's your favorite thing? As far as software stuff, there's a lot of alternatives out there. There's a whole lot of alternatives out there. This is a guy, X Daniel Art on Twitter, made this, or X, I guess, if you want to call it that, of things that you can use instead of Adobe Creative Cloud. And this was made in reaction to them having this terms of service thing that is we're not going to get into. Apparently, GIMP has had, I think GIMP has had a really, really good update lately. So GIMP 3.0, I've heard good things about. And it's free, I think. Yep, free and open source. A lot of the things on this list are free, open source, or just a single purchase, which in the age of subscriptions, we love that. If you want this, I will, that link will also be in that link tree and you guys can come get it.
Something else, just real quick. You do not have to make a comic digitally. You can totally do it traditionally, scan it, take photos of it on your phone, upload it. Like that is totally okay. You do not have to do it digitally. You could even make a comic using real photos. Just make sure that you don't have any pictures of people that you don't have permission to take their photo of in it. But you could just make a comic using photos from your phone. So you don't even have to draw necessarily at all. So these are really great resources for if you're actually doing digital drawing. And some of these resources are good if you want to take any of those other approaches, but you could make a comic that's entirely made out of like little clay figures that you make or sock puppets that you take photos of. You do not have to make your comic digitally. You can use other mediums.
Yeah. This last slide is we're gonna pretend like I put a wrap up slide in here. Where can you find us? We're at table blah blah blah, and we'll be there all day. And you can also find us at all of our social medias here. And we're also going to have a link to this presentation somewhere in here, which will make your life easier so you can refer back to it.
Probably on the website.
Probably we'll have a link on the website. We'll figure it out. Go away ads. Darn. I wish I could just turn them off sometimes. Okay. That was so at this point we would like take questions. We were running at about 55 minutes out of our hour.
Okay, yeah, so we might need to cut down a little bit somewhere.
Yeah. But that's okay. That's what this like practice run is for. Yeah. Overall, I thought most of it was fine. There's some things that I'm like, oh, I wish we had time to like talk about this thing more in depth, but there's not time.
It felt pretty good. Like there wasn't anything like other than the establishing shot thing, there wasn't anything glaring that I was like, ooh, this would be something really, really good to mention that is a basic,
yeah,
like quick thing to mention. Obviously
like in the page design area.
I'm trying to find, I think Star has got a diagram somewhere in her how to make webcomic book that talks about this, and I cannot find it at all because it was a quick little comic talking, like just showing, two characters talking, and then the camera kept zooming out until they figured out like where they were. I'm trying to find that image because that'd be really good to include. Yeah. Plus, I love Star's stuff. Like her book is good.
Yeah.
Do we have her book on our
not on our shelf? I don't think
we don't have it on our shelf. Do we have it in our affiliate link or whatever?
You can put it in our shop.
Yeah, because it's good, and she's I don't know if the new one's out yet. New edition? Can't remember.
I I think we're just gonna have. I think we will just have a slide on like where can I post my comics. And it just be like, where can you post it? And it's like, here, we're gonna go to questions now. And if you have more questions, please come talk to us because we're happy to talk about this forever.
Yeah, because like, yeah, I don't think we should get into like where do I host my comic? How do I market my comic? Like how do I pitch my comic? Like that's
This is the
all
making of the comic.
not beginner. That's not beginner level like stuff. Um, but we could be like, if you're interested in this sort of thing, like we're working on a follow up.
Thank you for the bits, Mr. Shins. It's so generous. I don't have like a. You know what? Take another shout out. Because you're super awesome. Oh wait, none of my commands are working.
No.
Okay, well, Mr. Shins is super cool. He does like some voice acting stuff. He plays games with stories. We love Mr. Shins in this house. He played our game, the one that we totally advertised at the very beginning, that we made. This one right here. He played that game, and he narrated it in a super great voice. So, go watch his playthrough of our game.
Oh, that was something I was gonna say. Can we swap out the image for that just for the white logo?
Yes,
Yeah, I think that'd look better.
that is fine with me. A Steeler game. Okay, cool. If y'all in the chat, as attendees of our test panel have like some specific questions or some specific feedback, if y'all will put that in the chat. I have snoozed this auto ad from Twitch, so I'm gonna go ahead and let that thing run. And I'm gonna go refill my cup because I just drank all my water because I just blabbed for 45 minutes. And we'll be right back. Here, I'm just gonna go to the last slide, and it's what are we talking about today? And then I'm just gonna throw my BRB text up. Does it say BRB?
Not
Nope,
find this
that's a starting
stupid
soon.
image. Where is it?
Ad break. Haha. Okay. Cool. Let the ad. Where you at? Okay. First of all, and if anybody has to go, please don't feel obligated to hang around. But also, thank you so much for joining this impromptu stream. I don't know if we're gonna run through it again, but we're happy to talk about it more. We might jump into the voice chat in the Border Breakers Discord server just to, chat with folks. All right. Goodbye behind ad wall for 3 minutes. Insert ad break command here.
Find that stupid logo. It exists somewhere.
I probably have it. Oh yeah, like that's the advantage of this is that I can just come over here and I can be like, this thing right. Oh, you're in here.
I'm in here. I got it.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute, it's gone.
Now it's ginormous.
Yeah, I was definitely having issues with things being ginormous. Yeah, so I think I can dump the what are we talking about?
Yes.
Or I can shorten
I
it.
think we can get rid of that.
I don't think we need it. I'm just gonna delete it.
I think the like what are we talking about thing is more like the preamble of being like, who is this for? Like and yeah, we don't necessarily need a I feel like the order of operations is pretty good.
Yeah.
And kind of like logical.
That was the hard part was like, oh, is this logical? Also, this taking up the whole slide is just making my eyes hurt. We're gonna make that less gigantic. You were talking about something in the 180-degree rule section that I was like, oh, that's where you mentioned establishing shots.
That's where I mentioned establishing shots.
Yeah.
Which you, yeah, kind of had said we would talk a little bit more in the page layout design. And then we didn't talk about it more there. I think it makes sense to go where I mentioned it. Because that's also after the cinematography basics and like where it talks about shot types. And it's after the shot types diagram.
Yeah. Like, need to have an establishing shot. Every new scene needs an establishing shot. So let's make a new slide. Let's delete this stuff. And then
Which like we could grab the establishing shot from page 7 or whatever.
Yeah, actually that's a really good example because it's got a lot of information in it.
Yeah. And it's like one of those panels that it's like you can spend a lot of time looking at it, but also you can like it might be a panel that people flip back to because they were like because there's foreshadowing in it.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I would love to get into talking about how you visually foreshadow, but I don't think we're gonna have time. I think that's gonna be in a like, okay, this is our intermediate.
Just gonna zoom in on this.
Yeah, because like we don't really get into much about visual style either. Like we don't talk about
I don't think it's
that.
like super necessary.
No. Because like I kind of thought about it when we were looking at when you were talking about the process, like page process where it goes from thumbnail all the way to finished page. And I didn't jump in with this comment, but like one of the things I was gonna saying is like your steps might look different if you're not doing line art or if you're using photos or whatever. And I kind of inserted that kind of towards the end.
Steps may vary based on style. Just adds a speaker note. Cause like Tony Cliff doesn't do inking. He just does like he just has like really he just goes straight. He's got his thumbnails and then he got his pencils. And that's it. And then he just goes into color.
Yeah.
Results may vary.
Because I think like our big takeaway for this is like if you want to do it, just do it and experiment and find a way that sparks joy, like to do it that sparks joy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're not doing like best practices or whatever, as long as you're doing the thing, that's all that matters.
Yeah, because you can do it a million times. Yeah, so I think we need a slide that's like, as a reminder, do it because you want to.
Yeah, if none of this advice resonates with you, like that's okay. We hope that you found one thing useful, in this talk, but like if none of this is how you want to approach it, that's okay.
Because what doesn't spark joy for me is inking and coloring. I just like doing the pencils.
Yeah, well, and some people like can't work in teams. Like they just
They're not very good at working in teams.
refuse to, and it's like, okay, well then you don't have to. Just understand that like there's going to be trade-offs then.
Let's see. Do I have something that's a good indicator of like do what sparks joy? Do I have a good like oh, do we have a colored? Oh, we do. We have a flatted version. I'm thinking like just get the escape panel.
Mm-hmm.
Just grab like it's gonna be really bad, and I don't really care. Do what sparks joy. Huzzah! You've got how many years of design experience? Enough. This is silly. Okay. Hello, Spike Wombat. Thanks for joining us. Oh, ad break's over. I guess I could have removed that like 5 minutes ago.
No, just leave it up.
Nah, it's still up. It's McSpike, the owner of an invisible Intellivision. What's an Intellivision? Okay, so overall, 45 slides. About 50 minutes.
Yeah, increase our pace a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's just a couple of things that like I can yap less about. Like I could have a whole presentation on lettering, and I can't do that.
Yeah, there's some things that I'm like, I'd love to spend more time on it, but we just don't have that time.
Do you want us to spend more time on it? Come visit us at our table and buy our merch.
Yeah, like that's the other thing is going to be like, okay, we've only got this many minutes for questions in here, but we are at our table the rest of the day. Please come visit us.
I need to talk to people, or I'm gonna walk around and be anxious.
Or here's our social media. Like send us a DM with your questions. You know, like
join our Discord. Is our Discord on our link tree?
I don't know.
Well,
it's in a lot of different places.
Linktree/Border Breakers. Missions, Patreon, website, Blue Sky, Facebook. Oh yeah, our Discord's not on here. Okay, let me add our Discord to it. Oh, I have to log in. Okay, that's a later me problem. Okay, cool. Sweet. Thanks everybody for sitting through our panel. Hopefully you learned something about making comics. It's 9:30. Why am I tired at 9:30? Tired of being tired at 9:30.
Oh wait, you did a lot today. We've been running around.
Yeah.
Dealing with problems.
My lovely partner came home with a problem.
And I did come home with a problem.
It has no name, and the name is the problem's name is Problem. It's a dog.
The problem is not staying. We will figure out how to find a good home for the problem.
Yep. My mom definitely did not text me back. I was like, "Do you guys want a geriatric chihuahua that's really sweet?"
She didn't text you back? That's
funny.
No,
she didn't text me back. A geriatric chihuahua. Like, oh wait, she did text me back. Oh my god. Oh yeah, my aunt might be actually a really good ask.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, if she's totally fine with taking a dog that we have no history of and have no idea what its like medical status currently is.
Okay, but like, so my aunt is. I have a weird family. Everybody has a weird family. Everybody's got family story, but my aunt is the crazy animal lady who has had squirrels and raccoons, and I'm pretty sure she nursed a couple of birds back to health. Like she was besties with a raccoon for a while there. Like she had a raccoon more or less as a pet that eventually she was like, okay, you need to go take care of yourself. And like it willingly I was like, I'm going to the wild. So yeah, this lady's gone through all kinds of like wacky animals. So in fact, I'm gonna message her and be like, hey, are you interested in a
send her a picture and be like, do you want this?
Yeah. Yeah, let me go get that picture to just like she's really cute. She's really sweet.
She's really cute. She desperately needs to be spoiled and pampered though. Like she needs to put on some weight.
Oh no.
She is not a chunky chihuahua. She's very small.
Nope. She's very, very thin. Where is the picture of problem? I want to show people the picture of problem. Is it in wholesome content? It is.
Yeah.
Buried under the cat pictures. Oh my god, there's so many cat pictures. Okay, here we go.
Look, better that we found problem than the bumper of a vehicle. That's all I'll say.
No, absolutely. There you go. You guys see problem? Look at her. Look at her. She's cute. She's old. She's geriatric. She doesn't have a tail. Like, they docked her tail in her ears and they left no tail at all. She's in the only room with actual tile in it. Which is so silly. Why that's the only room with actual tile.
Oh, perfect for as a little
cute.
emergency small tiny chihuahua room.
Yep. Yep. Like, she's really cute. She's such a sweetheart. But holy moly, I touched her and I immediately had hives.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that was fast.
Like, I think we definitely, like, if you hadn't had any reaction, we might have ended up with a dog accidentally.
Oh no, because I have a reaction to dogs.
Yeah.
It's just
you never know, because like
so
allergies change every 7 years, right? But yeah, no, you instantly had a reaction. So yeah, no, can't do it.
Me DMing my aunt. Would you be interested in a geriatric but very sweet chihuahua lady? That Lynn found wandering hungry on the streets. She's not very barky. Just a little, just wants attention.
Yeah, no, she's just, yeah.
She's a sweetheart.
She is really sweet. And she loves car rides. Oh my gosh.
That dog loved the car. It was crazy.
She was so happy to be in the car. And I was like, oh, girl, you stink still. Even after your bath.
That poor dog has some allergies or something, or a sinus infection, because she's just so sneezy. She like had her face out the window of the car and she sneezed and there was just a snot globule just like streaking down the window, and I was like, oh my god. I feel your pain, dog. I've been in this situation.
Her nails are really long, so we've been trimming them.
Yeah. She's cute though. Look at her. Look at her. She's just... We're trying to get her to eat something. We spent $50 on dog shit today.
Yep.
If we don't need any of it, and if there's anything that's like unopened, it's gone back.
I think the only thing that's unopened is the flea treatment.
Yeah, but we might actually need that.
And the doggy poop bags.
I'm less confident that we'll need that. Yep, immediately responded. She doesn't really bark. She's just kind of like yipped because she wanted attention. But okay.
Yeah, like
I've gotten like way off the rails here. So I'm gonna stop streaming. And again, thank you to everybody who joined and watched our little presentation and let us give it a test run. Maybe we'll do this again. I don't know. I don't even know if you're if we're gonna have a Sunday stream because we might be too beat for it, even though it's Pokemon. It should be easy.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. Throw in the deuces so I can settle down for the evening. And we'll see you all at the next one. Bye.
Bye.